Hello and Happy New Year. Today's the first day of January 2022. Let's do the Good Life meditation for today and to kick off a new year. This is something that I do every day to think about yesterday and how I did yesterday and last night, how I slept, to remember my objectives and principles. Hi, Rudy. And to forecast the day and go ahead and rest there. We'll go take a walk in a minute. Happy New Year to you, buddy. And to forecast the coming day. So, yesterday and last night, last night, I slept like a rock, which is a good and steady evidence that it was a good day. How I sleep is not only evidence that it was a good day previously, maybe even more so, telling about my frame of mind for the coming day. Now, given that today's a Saturday in a 3-day weekend, I guess it's not too surprising that I slept well. Not much to worry about today. Most of my chores are done. Shopping is pretty much complete. But usually it's work related. And I had a really solid 2 weeks of the holiday season, namely the week of Christmas and the week of New Year, leading into New Year's. Slow times at work when it would have been easy to goof off, and I did not. I worked hard and steady, and I closed the year in good form. Hello, good morning, Ollie. Why don't you go ahead and lay down too, and we'll go take a walk in just a little bit, okay? Happy New Year to you, buddy. You want to come sit with me over here? You can even come up here if you want. You want to come up here? Okay. Here we go. Come on. Don't fall in the hole. Okay, there we go. All right. So, yesterday was a good day, as I mentioned. So I think I've covered that. Didn't really have anything that really ambushed me or wasn't tested for anything. Tested, it sounds like someone's testing me. There were no real trials yesterday. It was just a good day. Let's do the good life. 7 objectives. The first of these is to be always ready to die. To have my affairs, my relationships, and my endeavors in good order. Let me assess my situation. I think those 3 are in as good a place as they could possibly be under the circumstances. So within my limits and opportunity. So yeah, I think that's good. 2 is the good and effective use of time. To not waste my moments. To make good use of time. To make a dog happy. Right. 3 is the development and maintenance of good and sound life principles, so that I have a ready ambition and aim in life, and good, solid, well developed and maintained tools to execute my life. Next is the cultivation of good emotional reaction. Just to react well to whatever's happening. To put myself into a frame of mind where even things that surprise me, I call them being ambushed. Don't unsettle me. That I can keep a good balance and firm footing through my stepping through life. The next principle is, or objective, is the good emotional reactions, or simply doing good actions, just doing good things throughout the day. We all know what those things are. Things that make the world a better place. Things that might make a dog smile. Right? That's right, buddy. The next objective is to recognize true limits and true opportunities. It's a difficult thing to do, because if you get it wrong, then you foreclose on opportunities that are within reach, and allow yourself to try where things are impossible. And last objective is just to do one thing at a time, and to always do that thing slowly. Those were my 7 objectives. Now my 30 principles. 1. The principle of war. To always be fighting against myself. That didn't come out quite right. I'm not fighting against myself. I'm fighting against the things that I believe. Questioning what I think is true. And along that endeavor, to pursue that endeavor, I use the next principle, which is the principle of reason. And the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, and doubt. Reason is the tool that I use to pursue the war on what I believe and what others believe as well. But I really only pursue that war against other people's beliefs when they propose that I believe it too. Or if they're voting to enact laws that will impose their beliefs upon me, then I apply that war. Next is the next principle is the homunculus. The idea that there's a little man or woman living inside our head, just behind our skull, peeking out through our eyes. Now, of course, there is no such man or woman within any of our skulls. And the homunculus is just a way to describe our consciousness. And more to the point, it's the substitute for the idea of a soul, because I don't believe that we have a soul, and I don't believe that there is any life after death. So that when we die, the homunculus is trapped within our head, like, as the cells within our brain begin to die, starved of oxygen when we take our last breath, and the homunculus winks out cell by cell. Our consciousness seems to go out at once, but then the pieces, the biological pieces and structure within our brain that make up the homunculus, that cause the homunculus to become emerge from biology, wither and die, and then there's no coming back, and the homunculus is gone forever. So is our fate. It's a sober thought, but I think it's true. The next principle is the Anchorhold, the little place where the homunculus suffers and dies. And I just had an idea. You know what I should do? Because this guy he's kind of my reminder of the homunculus. I should find a good little rock in the desert and have him sit upon the rock, stand upon the rock. That would be the homunculus on the Anchorhold. Picture a rock jutting out of a cold, dark sea, wide sea, infinite depth, and very dark and very cold. And the tide rises and falls, and the sea sometimes churns. Sometimes it's still and flat. Sometimes it churns madly. And that's the place where the homunculus stands. And the homunculus has to weather that sea. And it's scary when the tide rises and the water gets close to the homunculus's feet upon the rock. Anxiety. And then when it's down low, the water's down low, the homunculus feels a little more secure. And then when the waves come and splash and get the rock wet and slippery, that's scary too. and storms come, and rain and cold, and there's other anchorholds out there in the sea. Too far. You can't swim in that sea, so too far. And there's other people in them, and we wave at them. Some of them are pretty close, our family and our friends. We can wave and even talk to them, but we can never reach them, because in the end we're all truly, utterly alone. That is the Anchorhold, and that is the Homunculus. And those are two principles. The next principle is the home of good and evil. The idea that right and wrong are subjective values that we maintain, and that we kind of scribble them in chalk on the inside of our head, where the wind blows them away. And if we change our mind, we can scribble them with our palm and rewrite them. Little dusty imprints everywhere. Failed propositions of truth. Next is the principle of purpose, which has three sub-principles: biology, virtue, and mission. One clear purpose of life is to make more of ourselves, make copies of our genes, to raise them to viable, to a point where they can make their own copies, and then we can step out of the way and die. It's clear that that's something we need to do. We're driven to do. Our biology rewards us when we do that. It rewards us with the sense of family and community and continuity that might be lacking otherwise. Is it a vain purpose? No, I don't think so. Not if we believe that it's worthwhile to live. Virtue is the second purpose. Living a virtuous life, making the world a better place, improving happiness and well-being for thinking creatures in particular, but if possible for as many as possible. And then mission, to have some mission in life. My mission was, and remains, the writing and sharing of my book, Going Alone, which is where I have these objectives and principles. This book's available on Amazon, and you can also get it from my website, goingalone.org. All these objectives and principles are listed there. The next principle is the atomic principle. The idea that we are really nothing more than molecules, atoms, compounds, and that we're falling to pieces almost as soon as we're assembled, and that very soon, when we die, all this will just be broken apart. Never again, you and I. Next comes the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature, and it's good to remember and recognize what that nature is, so that we can abide those facts and live in accord with the reality of how the world really is. The pirate ride is next. This principle suggests that free will is an illusion, that we can make any decision that we want, but ultimately we would make no decision other than the decisions that we actually make. Curious. Almost sounds like a tongue twister. It's like a brain twister, that one. I hold this belief tentatively, because I can't demonstrate it's true. It's more like an operational premise. The next principle is maturity, and the sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude. Maturity is a state that we arrive at when we have experience, both good and bad, and then the strength to not repeat our mistakes and to further what works. The social principle is next. This idea suggests that we are social creatures, you and I, and that we need other people. Even if we're an introvert, we need other people. And we're better off if we pursue social ends, especially with regard to our purposes, our purpose. The next principle is the principle of public speaking. The suggestion that we learn to control our language, our utterances, our writing, every form of expression that we have, where we are sharing with others, and if possible, even our internal dialogue that goes on, which is the first emanation of everything that we say elsewhere. The principle of public speaking suggests that we should use few words, deliberate words, well-considered words, and to never ever gossip. This economy of language puts us in a place where we are expressing to the world just what we mean to say, and in just such a way that it is likely to be understood clearly, or as clearly as we can muster, by others. And we are also communicating in a way which does not impugn the character or good nature of others. This doesn't mean we can't talk bad about people. It's a tricky thing, huh? What if the person's really bad? And we just need to share with others to caution them about that, but we would never bring that up with the person themselves. That's an interesting case. Like, I would warn my daughter about a coworker that I thought was a dangerous person, even though they're not dangerous, not like they're a murderer, but just, their character's not good. Somebody who probably don't want to hang around. Right? I might not choose to prosecute that end at work. I would just distance myself from somebody like that. You know what I'm talking about. They're not dangerous. They're just, a toxic person, right? I would warn my daughter. I would say, hey, maybe kind of stay back from that person. But I probably wouldn't say that to that person themselves. Or maybe I would. It would depend on what the motivation was, right? If that person was there and that was the only opportunity to convey that message to my daughter, I would do it in front of that person. I would say, maybe you two should stay separate. Maybe you two shouldn't hang out. Oh, well, why? See, even Ollie gets upset. And maybe I'd say, because I don't trust you to that person, or whatever. For the sake of my daughter, I would put myself in that situation. So, it's an interesting consideration there. I have to think more about it. Next comes the principle of temperance, with 3 sub-principles: suffering, simplicity, hi Rudy, and apathy. A temperate life is a life lived in consideration and limited consumption of all things. Work and play and entertainment, food, drink, etc. And the sub-principles apply as follows. We suffer when we deny ourselves what we want. So it's good to recognize that suffering in that case is to be expected. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It is the consequence of a tempered life. Simplicity, because a simple life is by its very nature a temperate life. So by pursuing a simple life, we roll into it the virtue of temperance. And apathy, which is the ability to temper our emotions when we recognize what is outside of our control. a very stoic way of being. The next principle is the horror show. This is a suggestion that life is indeed chock full of horror. Not just bad things, but truly horrific things. Things that bend your mind. And that these things happen to each other, to humans, to animals, to our pets, to animals in nature, to biology. It's just an incredible fact of the world that we live in, that just horror is unfolding all around us at all times, seemingly. And I don't want to deny, I don't want to forget that fact, because that's part of what I'm seeking to alleviate, if not make go away, at least to alleviate some of the suffering that is the result of the horror through the good life. Next is the principle of that which must be borne, a recognition of what must be carried, not necessarily physically, but in our mind. The facts that we wish weren't so, that are, and nevertheless we have to live with it. And I just try to remember that that's the case, especially as an adult, especially as a parent. There are things that I just have to carry, that we all do, that we will get no relief from until we're dead. So we bear them. And there's a sub-principle there, which is the hand on the tiller. Imagine sailing a boat. The wind and the current is pushing the sails and the boat in a different direction, but I'm keeping the course. Hand on the tiller, that which must be borne. Next comes the best seat in the house. No. The Feast of Offal, which is, I was just thinking, it's the nature of this good life meditation to usually get that one wrong. Right in this area, this is the choppy waters of the good life meditation, where I mix things up. The Feast of Offal is when we let our emotions, our negative emotions in particular, fly out of our body through our words, our facial expressions, our actions, our gestures, and we share with the world our upset, and we make others upset in turn. That's why it's a feast. It's like a great banquet where we all come down to dine on the awful, offal of our intemperate living. I try to avoid that feast. I'm getting much better at that. Then comes the best seat in the house. To not want to be anyone else, be anywhere else, or be doing anything else, but to be okay with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing right now. Next is the Path of Wildness. The Path of Wildness is living when we are working to move our way upward and forward from a current life to a new life, which is what a lot of life living is just progress through different chapters of life. And sometimes it's clear which way to go. Sometimes it's not so, usually it's not so clear. And we have incomplete facts and uncertainty. We're on the path when we make a decision nonetheless and start moving along towards that decision. It's rough and it's scary and it's difficult and it's fraught with peril. But it's easy to find. It's a course of a stream. The course of a stream. Leaves blown in the wind. A beast's track through the brush, because wild things are courageous in that way. And the direction of our first inclination. That's the path of wildness. Next comes the risk of avoiding risk. Life has a whole bunch of surface level risks. The easy stuff, I think. The low-hanging fruit of, get a good education, get a good job, find somebody to marry, save for retirement, buy a house, settle down. Now, I'm not saying that these things are easy. I'm suggesting that they're low-hanging fruit because they're well sanctioned by society. Everyone will support us in most people at least will support us in those endeavors. They'll practically throw us parties along the way just to encourage us to go to school and get married and buy a house and et cetera, et cetera. That's why it's the low-hanging fruit. But there's something, for some of us, there's something kind of empty and shallow in just that life. Just living that safe and sane. And to those people, I suggest that there's a deeper level risk, which is that we don't take the time or make the effort to find ourselves, so to speak. The things that the hippies were talking about, So I encourage people to give themselves the decade of the 20s. Emerging from high school, get into college. Go as far as you can in college. Have that experience. And then whatever time is left after that to have to yourself, to consume life, to have a wonderful adventure of life until we reach the 30s. And then come home to your family, your community, stumbling, bloody, broken, possibly dead, but having lived a great life adventure, which I'll come to in just a minute. That will be the centerpiece of your life to put on the mantle of life when you find that job and find that spouse and the kids and all that stuff. You will always have that experience. Later in life, then that will probably be the germ of experience that will grow into something that you might want to write your own book about. It's a very fulfilling thing in that capacity. And I recognize that some people aren't interested in that. It just doesn't motivate them. So I'm really not speaking to them. I'm speaking to those who do feel that. And pretty young typically if you're one of them, one of us. Next is sin and damnation. There are 7 sins in my worldview, and these are credulity, an overeagerness to believe, hope, which is a desire that has no motive force. It's simply wishing for something to be true. Coupling hope with action, you have something, but just hope alone is nothing. It's clutching at pearls. Faith. Faith is a sin because faith is accepting a premise on the evidence that the premise alone is true. Without evidence, and considering that lack of evidence as itself evidence, which is absurd. That's why faith is absurd. Because also faith can deliver us to any belief. Any proposition can be held and maintained by faith. And if that's the case, then clearly that's not a good tool or instrument to arrive at what is true. It's a great way to arrive where you want to be, but not necessarily at the place that is real. That's why it's a sin. After faith comes dogma, which is belief because maybe there's a big book that says it's true. Authority is another sin. Belief because someone that we respect or that has a couple of suffixes on their name, some letters, or maybe wears a big funny hat, says it's true. Tradition kind of falls in there, although I don't consider it one of the sins outright, but sometimes I'm tempted to do so. Tradition has the feel of truth, but it's really just the way things are done. And there's a lot of things that are done that are not the best way or even right. And then the final sin is gossip. It's a deep sin. That's a mortal sin. Mortal sin. Dooms us all to die. Because we all gossip at one time or another. So we're all doomed. But that's ridiculous because we're doomed anyway. The consequence of these 7 sins is damnation. We live a damned life by virtue of our willingness to believe that which has no good reason for belief. Next is complete oblivion. The suggestion that once we're dead, we are gone utterly. There will be no reunion with anyone. We'll never see our family again. We'll never see our friends. We'll never see our pets again. There'll be no chance to reconcile. We won't be able to fix things with people we'll never be able to see. And there'll be no justice after we're dead, because none of us will exist. There'll be no one to apply justice to. So the suggestion from this sobering idea is that we take care of all those things now, that we have ourselves in a ready state to die because we have addressed our relationships, we have addressed justice, we have reconciled wherever possible. The next principle is the great life adventure. A great life adventure is what I was describing before. Maybe that thing that we do in our 20s that is the event that we reflect on, that becomes part of our identity. The choice of the t-shirts that we wear. And the nice thing is that we can do that throughout life, but it's more keen and deep and vibrant in the early on. It's harder to do later. But when we become old and pained and sober, tired and weary of life, and scared. The young are too alive to know that fear sometimes. That's their blessing. The next principle is the season of philosophy, which is a time of life to record what we've learned, to set it down somewhere, maybe in a journal or maybe with a drawing or a poem or a video or whatever you want to make. It's a chance to record what we've learned and what we think we want to share with those to come. Next comes arena and utility. Life is an arena. No, I got it wrong. The next one is, well, let me finish that one, then I'll come back. Life is an arena for the living for living, and whatever objectives and principles we can develop are the tools that we use to have an effective living. Let me go back one to the bullseye aim. This principle simply suggests that we strive to do things and we want to hit the bullseye, but we rarely do. Just imagine throwing darts and being upset that you miss the bullseye sometimes. We wouldn't. You would just recognize that that's the reality of the way life is. I'm simply suggesting that we do the same thing for life itself, to strive for the mark, but be ready to accept our misses for what they are. I already did the arena and utility. Boy, I missed that one. There's another one between that. After the bullseye aim is the uphill climb. Life is this steady trudge upwards against gravity. Some stop early, low at the lowlands. Pardon me, they stop wholly in the lowlands. They don't go very high up the mountain. And it's a comfortable place to be, but the vista is not very fine. They don't see very far. The higher that we climb on the mountain, the greater we can see. The colder it gets, the more wind blown it is. Maybe we are in more danger, but what of you? Then comes arena and utility. And then two more. The principle of nothing is enough. Simply admonishing myself to be all right with less, which offers sometimes so much more. And then finally, the principle of fun. The suggestion that life isn't all this work necessarily, all this hard work of pursuing virtue and having a purpose. And it's also about enjoying our time along the way. Something I'm working on and I'm getting better at. So those are my 7 objectives and 30 principles. Now let's plan the day. Let's forecast the day. There's not much to forecast. All I'm going to do today is, well, sometimes when I have nothing to do, that's hard. I don't have anything to do today. My chores are nearly done. I'll finish cleaning the house. I'll take the dogs out for a walk. I'll finish cleaning the house. I plan to do some more reading. And then just enjoy the day. Well, thank you for joining me today. I wish you all the best. Be safe, but not too safe. Happy New Year.